Conditions in many prisons in the Americas region are deeply worrying. Pre-existing structural problems such as chronic overcrowding and unhygienic conditions, coupled with a lack of proper access to healthcare, have enabled the rapid spread of COVID-19 in many facilities across the continent.
Yeah, you heard it. The United Nations says prisons across Latin America are a breeding ground for the coronavirus. We have heard similar warnings here in Europe. Germany has prevented outbreaks in its prisons by releasing prisoners. Up to 1,000 inmates have gone free. My colleague and reporter Amien Essif has been speaking with prisoners, however, who paint a very different picture of what is going on behind bars. I mean, what have they been telling you?
Essentially that the measures put in place to protect them by state governments in Germany are not being implemented, that staff are still coming and going, sometimes not wearing face masks, not keeping their distance from prisoners, getting very close to them, also that prisoners themselves are not keeping socially distanced, that they're still eating lunch in groups. I spoke to several prisoners at Plötzensee here in Berlin who said this. They're very concerned. I spoke to one prisoner, 44 years old, Christian F. He is part of a high-risk group, so he has diabetes, he has heart problems and a high blood pressure, and he doesn't feel that the prison is protecting him, and he fears for his life. So let's take a look into what he said.
Okay.
The mood is relatively tense. Many prisoners feel anxious and insecure about the steps being taken, especially since we don't know what's coming, and important information from authorities about what we should do is generally not available. When things will return to normal, or rather a new normal, no one knows.
I talked to the spokesperson for the Justice Ministry here in Berlin, who contradicted what he said. They said they're implementing all the measures possible to protect the prisoners, and that prisoners inside Plötzensee prison are spreading rumors about the prisoners.
Of course, it makes you wonder who's checking on the people who are checking on the prisoners. These prison authorities do you think they're making a trade-off between prisoners' rights and their safety?
Well, I think prisons essentially are a trade-off between rights and safety, and I think what we're seeing globally is that a global pandemic makes this even more complicated. So, yeah, the simple answer is yes. Prisons all across Germany have done things like banned family visits, banned group activities like sports and church service. So essentially prisoners are living in a kind of isolation that's usually used to punish bad behavior. And this has taken a heavy toll on them psychologically. I spoke to Ria Halbritter. She's a lawyer and expert in criminal rights. And she said that the trade-off is a hard one.
It's really, really awful for inmates now with the restrictions, especially now that visits aren't allowed. But to be very clear, no one wants to be the one who brings coronavirus into the prison, because if there is an outbreak, things would become much worse, much more disastrous. Obviously, something needs to be done to protect prisoners, and that will, of course, have drawbacks.
Advocates are also saying that the trade-off is necessary, but that prisons could be urged to make a more difficult trade-off and invest more money into better spaces and better health care for prisoners.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens anytime soon. I mean, as always, thanks for your reporting.
Thanks, Brent.